What if I told you that in, like, a single evening, a group of just 7 people will decide the fate of a multi-million-dollar theme park expansion, authorize over $2 million to clear encampments, and then, and this is wild, meticulously debate the fate of exactly $2,103.
I mean, it sounds intense, but welcome to our deep dive.
Yeah, exactly.
Because, we usually think of local government in terms of the big, loud events, right?
Mm.
Like ribbon cuttings or protests or breaking ground on new developments.
The flashy stuff that makes the local news.
Exactly. But the actual blueprint of your community is hidden in a stack of really dry, highly structured paperwork.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because today we are decoding a very specific 7-page document. It's a city council regular meeting agenda for the city of Gilroy, California.
Right, from Monday, May 18th, 2026.
Yeah, and we've got some minutes from earlier that month, too. And the mission today is to show you how this single stack of paper dictates almost every aspect of a city's daily life.
It really does.
And before we even look at the specific decisions being made, just setting the scene of this meeting at City Hall on Rosanna Street tells you so much about how modern local democracy actually operates.
Yeah, because the agenda itself acts as a user manual. Right at the top, it lays out the rules of engagement for anyone showing up.
Right.
For instance, it sets a strict 3-minute limit for public comments. And that might sound incredibly short when you are a citizen who's super passionate about an issue, but it is a vital boundary.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a time management mechanism, right?
Exactly. A council just cannot function if an open forum turns into a 3-hour filibuster.
Oh, totally. And what really stands out to me is the active effort to lower the barriers to entry for folks. Like, they explicitly list ADA compliance for anyone needing special assistance.
Which is just standard, but very important. Yeah.
Right. But there's also an entire section written in Spanish and like a QR code right on the agenda that you can scan with your phone.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. You scan it, pop in your headset, and you get live written translation during the meeting. It's just a very clear picture of a government trying to make a dense bureaucratic process actually accessible to the people who live there.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, national news might get all the attention, but a local agenda like this is where abstract political theory becomes, well, a pothole getting filled.
Yeah, or a neighborhood fundamentally changing its character.
Precisely. And over the course of this deep dive, we are going to look at 3 layers of this city's operations. So how it manages physical infrastructure, how it navigates the really intense battle for public space, and finally, how it manages its own internal survival and identity.
Let's start with that first layer, the physical city. The things you interact with the moment you walk out your front door.
The literal concrete and asphalt.
Right. There is a section on this agenda called the consent calendar. And the rules state that all matters listed under the consent calendar are considered routine, so they get enacted by one single motion.
Right. They vote on a massive block of items all at once without any separate public debate.
Which is wild to think about.
Well, the consent calendar is essentially the city's spam filter for routine governance.
I love that analogy.
Yeah, it keeps the council's public discussion time clear for actual contested emergencies.
But when you actually read what is in this quote-unquote spam filter, the sheer scale of the decisions is staggering.
It really is.
Like, item 8.3 is the adoption of an ordinance amending the city code to reduce the prima facie speed limits in school zones. They're dropping them from 25 miles per hour down to 15 or 20 miles per hour.
And that's based on Assembly Bill 382, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And just to clarify that term for anyone wondering, a prima facie speed limit is the default baseline speed that applies when there are no other specific signs dictating otherwise.
Right.
So they are essentially lowering the default assumption of speed across these zones citywide.
And right next to it is item 8.2, where they are amending the capital budget for a 2026 citywide speed survey. Then you have item 8.4, which is requesting funding from the Metropolitan Transportation Commission for pedestrian and bicycle projects.
Under the fiscal year 2027 Transportation Development Act, Article 3, I believe.
Yeah, that's the one. And I just have to ask, because it's like adjusting the city's cardiovascular system, right? They are literally changing the speed at which the blood or, traffic flows through the city's veins.
That's a great way to put it.
So, wait, if reducing school zone speeds by 10 miles per hour alters daily commutes, changes local enforcement strategies, and reshapes traffic flow so heavily, why bury it in a routine rubber stamp vote?
Honestly, because of the sheer volume of municipal management.
Really? just time constraints.
Basically, yeah. A city council has an incredibly limited window of time. This particular group started their closed session at 5:00 p.m. and their open session at 6:00 p.m.
So they're already on the clock.
Exactly. And they are processing massive mandates handed down from the state legislature. You mentioned Assembly Bill 382 for school zones, right?
Right.
Well, there's also Item 8.5, which is adopting a resolution to approve the fiscal year 26-27 road rehabilitation projects. And those are funded by Senate Bill 1, which is the state's Road Repair and Accountability Act.
So let me get this straight. The state passes a sweeping infrastructure bill in Sacramento, but the actual execution of that bill, like the literal pouring of the asphalt, falls onto the lap of the local council in Gilroy.
Precisely. And this is how state mandates operate in reality. The state provides the legal framework and, sometimes the funding, but the local city staff has to do the grueling administrative work.
The actual heavy lifting.
Yeah, they have to run the engineering studies, write the grant proposals, ensure state compliance, and draft the local ordinances.
Wow.
If the council were to publicly debate the engineering merits of every single grant application for a bike lane or every road repaving schedule, the meeting would last for weeks.
So they have to just trust the preparatory work of the city staff. The council is essentially voting to execute the underlying machinery of the city in one go.
It is the silent infrastructure. It requires an immense amount of faith in the civil servants who drafted the 300-page packet supporting this agenda. The council members are reviewing the staff recommendations beforehand and just trusting the data.
But paving those roads and setting those speeds is really just the baseline. Because the real friction happens when you look at who actually occupies that space.
Oh, absolutely.
Which brings us to our second layer, the battle for public space.
Right. This is where the pragmatic management of asphalt collides with the very complex, often messy reality of community life. We are looking at how a city balances its economic ambitions against its social realities.
And the duality in this agenda is striking. I mean, in the unfinished business section, item 10.1, the council is debating downtown plywood and vacancy regulations.
Right, so dealing with empty storefronts.
Exactly. They are having to draft specific rules about boarded-up windows in their commercial center. Yet, right under the public hearing section, they were discussing the renewal of the Gilroy Tourism Business Improvement District.
So they are managing two drastically different economic faces of the exact same city.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, lay it on me.
If you look back at the minutes from their May 4th meeting, which are actually included in this packet for approval, you see this duality play out in real time.
Right, the May 4th minutes.
On May 4th, they received a presentation from Hoa Lee, the president and general manager of Gilroy Gardens.
Okay.
And he presented a proposed capital improvement plan to develop the Hecker Pass Outdoor Events Center. So they are actively planning to expand their footprint as a major tourism hub.
What's fascinating here is that they're acting as an economic engine, a polished, multi-million-dollar engine designed to pull in outside revenue.
Right. But in those exact same May 4th minutes, just a few items down from the shiny theme park expansion, the council awarded 3 massive on-call contracts for encampment cleanup program services.
Oh, wow. Yeah, the contrast is stark.
It's crazy. These went to the San Jose Conservation Corps, Landscape Maintenance America, and FS Global Solutions. And these are 3-year contracts with 2 one-year extension options for an amount not to exceed $750,000 each.
Each?
Yes. That is a potential commitment of $2.25 million just to manage unhoused encampments. Wait, so they are simultaneously trying to attract tourists to a massive new outdoor event center at Hecker Pass while actively dealing with boarded-up downtown buildings and spending millions on clearing encampments.
A lot to juggle.
How do those two drastically different priorities compete for the same council's attention?
Well, executing contracts of that scale is incredibly complex. That $2.25 million represents mobilizing heavy machinery, coordinating sanitation efforts, and deploying specialized personnel.
It's a massive logistical operation.
Exactly. What this agenda illustrates so clearly is that a local government cannot choose to only be an economic engine, and it cannot choose to only be a crisis manager. It must be both simultaneously.
Drawing from the same pool of administrative bandwidth.
And the same tax dollars, yeah.
It really puts the concept of public space into perspective. A park, a downtown sidewalk, an empty lot. They aren't just physical locations. They're contested zones where the city is constantly allocating resources.
The ultimate battleground for a city's resources.
Yeah. They are subsidizing tourism at Hecker Pass while drafting plywood aesthetics for Main Street while funding heavy-duty contractors to manage the reality of homelessness.
And the citizens who show up to these meetings are acutely aware of this tension. If you look at the public comment section from those May 4th minutes, you see residents actively lobbying for how those resources should be used.
Right, they had a lot to say.
Yeah. Like Anne Marie McCauley expressed gratitude that the council was discussing solutions for the unhoused. And another resident, Elizabeth R. Stone, explicitly urged the council to move with compassion regarding the unhoused community.
And, our goal here isn't to take a political stance on encampment cleanups or tourism subsidies. We're just reporting what's in the document.
Of course.
But looking purely at the mechanics of this agenda, you see the direct pressure the council is under. They're listening to the moral and practical pleas of their residents, and then they have to turn around and sign the literal checks to manage the physical reality on the streets.
It is the ultimate balancing act of spatial management. I mean, every inch of space you walk past in a city has been debated, regulated, and funded by someone sitting in those council chambers.
But you can zone all the tourism districts and authorize all the cleanup contracts you want. None of it actually happens if the city government itself is breaking down internally.
Which is a very real threat.
Right. Which brings us to our third layer, the mechanics of governance. How the city manages its own survival and identity.
Because executing a $2.25 million sanitation contract or rolling out Senate Bill 1 road repairs requires human capital. The gears of government are entirely dependent on the people employed to run them.
And according to this agenda, that human capital is under severe strain. In the regular session, there is a public hearing required by state law, AB 2561.
Okay.
This is a report from the Interim Human Resources Director on City of Gilroy vacancies and recruitment and retention efforts. So the city is facing a staffing shortage.
And this is a critical bottleneck. You can allocate millions for community events or infrastructure, but if you don't have a city engineer to approve the road grade or a contract manager to oversee the encampment cleanups, the projects just stall.
You just sit there.
Yeah. Assembly Bill 2561 is a mechanism the state uses to force local governments to publicly acknowledge and address these public sector hiring crises.
But the internal challenges go beyond just hiring, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before the public even gets to speak at 6:00 p.m., the agenda shows a 5:00 p.m. closed session.
The closed sessions are always interesting.
They have a conference with real property negotiators. The city administrator, Matt Morley, and the economic development director, Raisa De La Rosa, are negotiating the price and terms of payment for properties on Railroad Street, Monterey Road, and Rosanna Street.
Quite a bit of real estate.
Yeah, and the negotiating parties are Falcon Development and an entity called Retraining the Village. Why is a public city council conducting massive real estate deals behind closed doors?
Well, closed sessions are highly regulated, and the agenda specifically notes this is pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8.
Okay, so it's strictly by the book.
Oh, absolutely. The logic behind this exception is simple market economics, really preventing speculation.
How so?
If a city council discusses the maximum price they are willing to pay for a plot of land in an open, televised session, the seller will immediately demand that exact maximum price.
Oh, duh. Yeah, that makes sense.
Because the closed session protects the taxpayer's bargaining power in real estate negotiations or, in cases of pending litigation.
Okay, so they are acting as a major real estate broker, dealing with developers and community organizations, all before the official meeting even starts.
Right.
But then, once the doors open, state law forces transparency on other heavy issues. Item 8.8 on the consent calendar is the annual military equipment use report for 2025.
Right, which is mandated by another state law, Assembly Bill 481.
Yeah, it's just so intense.
Well, it's another prime example of how state and local governance intersect. Assembly Bill 481 doesn't outright ban local police from having specific gear.
Okay.
Rather, it forces transparency. It legally requires the local police chief, in this case, Brandon Sanchez, whose appointment was actually just confirmed in the May 4th minutes, to stand before the public and itemize the equipment they hold.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it forces a local conversation about the tools of enforcement.
So it's like a corporate board meeting, but instead of just maximizing profits, you have a council juggling multi-million-dollar real estate, staffing shortages, and military equipment disclosures.
It's an incredible amount of responsibility.
It is. Yet right in the middle of all this heavy pragmatism, you find an entirely different kind of debate. Item 11.1 under New Business. The Public Works Director is presenting options for displaying commemorative flags at City Hall or the Civic Center.
Ah, the flagpole policy.
Yes, they are discussing community input and deciding if they are going to install a new third flagpole specifically for commemorative flags, like Sister Cities flags, and revise their entire flag flying policy.
Right.
It just seems so jarring. You have a council struggling to hire staff and spending millions on encampment cleanups. Why dedicate precious open session time to the logistics of a new metal pole?
I get why it seems jarring. But this is because local government is where the strictly pragmatic collides with the deeply symbolic.
The symbol.
Yeah. I mean, a city is not just a corporation delivering water and fixing potholes. It is a community with a shared identity. A city flagpole is a designated public forum.
Okay, I see.
The decision of whose flag gets to fly there, whether it's a sister city, a cultural organization, or a historical recognition, is a public declaration of who the city values and how it sees its place in the broader world.
It's the city defining its own culture in real time,
Exactly.
which, makes a tiny micro detail on the consent calendar suddenly make a lot more sense. Looking at item 8.7, it is a request for approval to disburse exactly $2,103 in interest income from the Gilroy Museum Endowment Trust to the Museum Donations Fund.
$2,103.
Not $2,000, not $2,100, exactly $2,103.
Very specific.
When you compare that to the $2.25 million encampment contracts or the Hecker Pass theme park expansion, it seems like a rounding error.
Right.
It barely registers on the municipal scale.
It might seem that way, but it carries immense weight.
Really?
Yeah. That $2,103 represents a fiduciary duty to historical preservation. It represents a trust that was likely established by citizens who wanted to ensure the city remembered its past.
Oh, wow.
So the council is legally and morally obligated to manage that relatively tiny trust with the exact same precision and oversight they use to appoint a new police chief or approve massive infrastructure grants.
The macro and the micro, sitting side by side on a single piece of paper. So what does this all mean? For you listening, the next time you drive through a 15-mile-per-hour school zone or walk past a boarded-up window downtown or look up at a commemorative flag flying outside your local civic center, I want you to remember this deep dive.
It completely reframes how you interact with your own neighborhood.
It really does. You are not just looking at random occurrences. You are looking at the direct, tangible output of a Tuesday evening meeting. You are seeing the physical manifestation of a 7-page agenda where a group of people sat in a room, navigated state laws, managed millions of dollars, and carefully tracked a $2,000 museum trust.
You start to see the administrative labor behind the asphalt, and, it leaves us with an interesting final thought to consider.
What's that?
Well, we spent this deep dive looking at the massive amount of administrative bandwidth required to draft these agendas, navigate state mandates, and process routine consent calendars. But as technology advances, how long will it be until artificial intelligence is tasked with drafting these massive 500-page agenda packets?
Oh, wow. That is a wild thought.
Right. When an AI algorithm is analyzing the engineering reports and deciding which potholes get bundled into the consent calendar first, what happens to the human element of local democratic oversight? I invite you to look up your own local city council agenda this week. Skim through the consent calendar. See what is happening in your own backyard while humans are still the ones doing the writing.